The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
This was a man, let's say his name was Chaim. He got married, and Chaim and his wife were married for years and years and years without any children. And I mean, the pain, unbelievable, of watching their friends give birth and a second child and decide which school to send to and doing carpools. And here his wife is on the block, not included, left out 10 years. So finally, the pain was so intense. Chaim was not really the type to go to rabbis and stuff. Someone told him, there's this Hasidic Rebbe, the Skalena Rebbe, go to him. People go to him for berachot and advice. Why don't you go to him? Okay. So he goes to this Rebbe, and there's a whole long line, and Chaim is standing on line. He finally is in front of the Rebbe. The Rebbe says, I just want to tell you. He said, where there's machloket, and when there's strife, there's no blessing. He said, Rebbe, what are you talking about? He says, let me say it again. Where there's machloket, and when there's strife, there's no blessing. So Chaim's like, I didn't tell him anything about, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, Rabbi, let me tell you the story. He said, I got the story. Where there's machloket, there's no blessing. He walks out of the rabbi's office totally depressed, befuddled. What? What's he talking about? So he's spending the whole night pacing back and forth. What machloket? I get along with everyone. I'm a friendly guy. I'm a nice person. I don't even know what he means. He's thinking. He's trying to think back 1 year, 2 years. Finally thinks back to high school. In high school, he was one of those popular kids. And there was another popular kid named Yitzi. And the two of them, you can't have two kings in one castle. And so basically throughout the entire 4 years of high school, each guy had his crew and had their posse and had their guys. And they would annoy each other and play pranks on each other and get under each other's skin and make fun of each other. And that was the whole 4 years of high school. At the graduation, Yitzi came to me and said, I just want to tell you, Chaim, you made my last 4 years miserable and I don't forgive you. And Chaim said, doesn't matter, because I don't forgive you either. The two of them, they graduated and never saw each other again. So Chaim says, that must be it. He calls the Rebbe back. He says, Rebbe, is that what you're referring to? The Rebbe says, I'm not a prophet. I have no idea what I'm referring to. I just know that when there's machloket, when there's strife, there's no blessing. Chaim says, I have to do something about this. He tries to figure out where Yitzi lives. He starts making phone calls. He starts finding out, doing his research. He finds out that Yitzi lives in L.A. He lives here in New York, Chaim. He lives in L.A. Call him, no shot. I have to do something. He gets on a plane, JFK, and he flies to L.A. He has no idea what he's going to say to this man. He's driving in the car. Finally gets to where Yitzi's house is supposed to be. He comes up to the front door. He says, I don't even know what to say. But I know if I don't do it now, it's never going to happen. And so he stands in front of the door, he's shaking, and he starts to knock on the door. And now, this man must have seen him through the hole, because Yitzi opens the door, and he says, what are you doing here? What are you doing? Get off of my property! Get out! He says, I'm sorry, I flew in from New York to talk to you. He says, I don't care. I don't care where you came from. I told you I never want to see you again in my life. Get off of my property. He says, but you don't even know what to say. 10 years of pain. He falls to the ground and he just starts to cry, and he starts to try to explain through his tears. He says, you don't understand. I'm married for 10 years and I have no children. And I just flew across the country just to ask you for forgiveness. And he keeps talking, and he's waiting for Yitzi's reaction. And Yitzi doesn't say anything. And he looks up, and he sees Yitzi's face, and Yitzi's also hysterical crying. He says, what? He says, I don't have any children either. The two of them hugged, embraced, and a year later, both had a child.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org